back to the podcast Against the Narrative, and today we are talking about the dreaded FFP. The one that everybody in the pitch, everybody in the administrative room, everybody in the transfer window always thinks about and always talks about when it comes to football. FFP, financial fair play, as we know it, or people call it PSR this time. But today we are talking about it and we are going to be breaking it down. We are going to be talking about how the FFP does not level the playing field. I repeat, because that is the reason it was brought. It was brought because the likes of Manchester United, Arsenal, Manchester City, Tottenham Hotspur would influx the transfer window with a lot of money from their owners. And the people like Brighton or the Fulhams of this world or the Bournemouth of this world did not have the opportunity to influx that amount of money because they did not have it. And so today we are going to be talking about how things the intentions were right. However, the execution was not. You get me? The execution did not derive the intended result. And that is what we are going to focus on today. So if you guys are not ready, go get ready, sit down, get your water, because I got mine right here, and absolutely sit down with this one, because this is going to be an analytical situation that is going to be very calm and also almost investigative in this situation. So make sure you guys are very ready for this, because guess what? It's going to be provocative. It gets the people going, like you heard in the Kanye song. However, it's going to still be controlled. So I want you guys to understand that we are going to be talking about this because it's something that needs to be said. It's something that needs to have a conversation. It is something that we are going to talk about right now. So first things first, we have been told that financial fair play makes football fair. But this right here, I'm not sure if it's true. It's far from the truth for me. Why do same clubs keep winning? You understand? Why do same clubs keep winning? We have not seen the Leicester of yesteryear. We have not seen the magic of 0-1 or be whatever to 1 situation that Leicester did. So why is it that you can say that if you have the highest wage bill, you could be in the running for the trophy? Every single time, if you look back at it, the statistic tells us that majority of the time, if you are winning in the balance checkbook, if you are winning in the checkbook situation, you have the best opportunity to win the league. See who is leading the league right now. We are looking at Arsenal. We are looking at Manchester City. You are looking at last year was Liverpool. We are looking at the year before City. You understand? And these are people that spend the most money. So let's lay out something so people can understand. Let's lay out the premise for you guys to check out. It was introduced by UEFA, you understand? Sold as protection against collapse of the teams. Marketed as competitive balance. These are things that they told every single person. Then they absolutely came out and said, oh, this is the way things will be. It will be more competitive. Every single team, every single opportunity, every single club will have the opportunity to win the league. And it's only going to be based on merit and based on your ability to be able to scout the right people. But this episode isn't about whether FFP is legal. It's about whether it actually works. You understand? It's about whether we need to scrap it or retool it. It needs to happen, because what we are seeing right now is that it needs to be fixed. What FFP was designed to fix is what we are going to talk about in this particular part of the video. Context matters. You understand? Pre-FFP era. Let's paint the picture for everyone to understand. Pre-FFP era. And for people that did not know what FFP is, it means financial fair play. Pre-FFP era, clubs were drowning in debt. We saw the likes of Bolton go down. We saw the likes of Portsmouth go down. We saw so many, even Leeds at one point went down because of lack of forethought on how to run the situation. We saw owners gambling on situations, and the gambles weren't educated gambles like how we see Bournemouth or Brighton do now. We saw financial collapse that put fear of God into the fans and the owners alike. So let's break it down so people would understand. Even in the break-even requirements in this situation, things were absolutely tough for people to raise. Acceptable losses. You understand, there were things that we could say, oh, we would be able to take this. These are the losses that we are going to be able to take. And then you have the monitoring period, things that administration would have to come in and be like, oh, look, this is something that's happening. You are not running your club the best way possible. And then you look at the squad cost, the ratio rules, unsustainable rules in this situation. This was very simple for me to understand. It was truly not the best way football could work, because we could look at what Manchester City did. Because pre-FFP era, Manchester City got owners that had a country backing their football club. The Blue Co. They literally had, not the Blue Co, but the Etihad. They had a whole country backing their football club. And so they went and got the likes of Aguero. They got the likes of De Bruyne. They got the likes of Yaya Toure. They got the likes of so many big Robinho. And the amount of money they will fork out to play these players was ridiculous. Every single person that looked at that team or looked at the amount of money that they were ready to pay would move immediately. We all saw the rumors, not rumors anyway. At this point, it's well known. Robinho thought he was coming to Manchester United, but he was so excited about the offer that he absolutely did not check to see if it's Man United or Manchester City. He did not even know that there was another club in Manchester. Same thing for Yaya Toure. So this time was where it was open season on, if you have the money, you can buy the success. And Manchester City is an exact example of a team that has literally, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything from them in terms of what they have been able to do on the pitch, but they definitely bought this situation. They bought the best players, they bought the best manager, they absolutely bought the best stadium and made the best training ground. And in that simple thought process, they were able to attract the best of the best, and they turned around Manchester City being the noisy neighbors to being a world-class team that people actually want to go play for. But you understand? So football wasn't equal before FFP, and that matters. You understand? It was not equal because the likes of Brentford was never going to be able to compete with Manchester City if they did not cap the way Man City spent their money. We all know about the 115 charges that is literally coming down the pipeline. We don't know if they're going to get penaltied for that. We don't know that. But one thing is for sure. If we had let Manchester City continue the way they wanted, if we had let Chelsea continue the way they wanted, if we had let those teams that literally had money oozing out of their owners and their owners being so willing to keep on pumping money in there, at this point the Premier League would have been a farmers league. It would have been a league where Manchester City won it, Chelsea won it, and that was about it. Because Man United, yes, they have the money from the club, but the owners never put any dime in terms of influx of money. So we can't use Man United at that situation. You understand? So now, what the freeze effect? What happened? How were they able to freeze this situation? Because that is what I want to talk about. That is the main part about this video. This is the heart of the episode in my mind. Under FFP, spending is linked to revenue. So if you make it, you can spend it. That's the easiest way to think about it. If you make it, as a club, as a team, you can spend that right there. Revenue is linked to historical success. If you have been historically successful, you of course get an advantage. That way, it's a level playing ground for both teams. You have the history, and that gives you a little bit of a wiggle room to spend a little bit more because, of course, you have more money coming into your team. And, of course, the other teams that are not historically successful don't have as much fans, don't have as much money coming into their team. You get me? So clubs like Real Madrid, Manchester United, Bayern Munich entered the FFP era already earning multiple of mid-tier clubs. Multiple times what mid-tier clubs would earn. You understand? So when UEFA says, spend what you earn, that sounds neutral, isn't it? But it protects incumbents. This is an economic entrenchment in this situation. You understand? It's an economic entrenchment in this situation. It's like telling a startup you can only spend what they make while competing against the likes of Apple. I want you guys to let that breathe. You get me? Take it in and breathe it out, because you are literally telling a startup to spend what they earn while telling Apple to also spend what they earn. That right is not a level playing field, because Apple will for sure be able to swallow that team up. They would swallow that team and swallow them convincingly. Or that, not that team, but that startup. You understand? So let's look at the accounting loopholes that this has already led us to. You understand? We have spoken about how ridiculous saying they should spend what they earn, and having understood that the incumbents already have an advantage in that situation. Let's look at the accounting loopholes and structural advantages that we noticed in the FFP after analyzing it. Now let's get technical. But of course, we're going to keep it conversational, because I want everybody to be able to understand what this thing is and understand it very clearly. Amortization is the first thing that people need to know about this situation. Now, let's explain it for you guys to understand it. And I'm going to say it in such an easy way that even people that do not watch football should be able to understand amortization. You have a 100 million pound player. You signed up 100 million pound player and you give him a deal of 5 years. What that actually cost you that year is 20 million pounds per year cost. Let me break it down. 100 million pound is how much you bought that player for. And you signed the player for a 5-year contract. And what happens in that situation is that they amortize the payments that they paid for that and spread it out. That way, 20 the first year, 20 the next year, and 20 for 5 years makes 100 million pounds. And that right there is how they amortize players' purchases. Now, sale profits hits immediately, because what you see in that situation, clubs have exploited this structure so well. For example, Chelsea. We all know Chelsea, and we all know what Chelsea has been able to do. They will buy a player for 100 million pounds. Let me even bring out my calculator, because I want you guys to be able to understand this as crystal clear as possible, right? They'll buy a player for 100 million pounds, and then they will amortize that player for 8 years. That means they signed the player for 100 million pounds, and then they signed him to an 8 years contract, something that we have never seen in a long time since Chelsea started doing it. And of course, this is from the Blue Co. That means they are going to be paying 12.5 million. And that is the only amount that comes out of their account or is being accredited for that player that season. Do you know how mind-blowing that is? That means you can go back into the market and keep on buying. In the midfield of Chelsea, we have seen 200 million pound player plus in Enzo Fernandez and of course Moises Caicedo. In the winger position, we have seen multiple 50 million pound players in Pedro Neto, Bino Gittins. Estevao was even 60 million. Of course, Garnacho was 24, 40 something. So what they were able, and don't get me wrong, they still have the players from Sportings that are not even yet in the team. So you see and you understand how Chelsea have been able to navigate the situation, while you see Aston Villa not even able to buy a player, having to loan players and send them back, or loan players, and in the loan says if you play them for 10 games, you absolutely have to pay us, and they don't want to play him for 10 games. In Harvey Elliott's case, you look at Juventus accounting investigations. All these things are right there. They are so clear as a loophole in this FFP situation. And then you have to then look at related party sponsorships. That has been debated so much right now, and it all stems from Manchester City. It's a debated situation that has gone into the courts right now, and if I'm not speaking, Manchester City is the number one person in this situation. What is related party sponsorship? I will basically try and break it down for you so you can understand. Related is like, I'll give you an example. If I own a company that makes these hats, right? And I also own a club. And then the clubs, I'm a sponsor of that club. And so what that would do, instead of me paying the fair amount of what feels like a market value, I raise the money up because I'm technically paying myself. You understand? I own the club, I own the business. So I'm going to raise the money up instead of paying the market value. That way I can then say I made more this year because of the money that we got from sponsorships. You understand? And then you also then have the state-linked commercial deals that we got. Etihad from Abu Dhabi. All those things are loopholes that Manchester City absolutely utilized. Now, don't get me wrong. Whether it's legal or not is not the point. The point is that the system is flexible for those with leverage. That is the point right there. Because I'm not going to talk about the legal situation because I am not a lawyer, nor do I know the in and out of the situation. So I don't want to get sued. I just know that if you have leverage, you can make the system as flexible as you want it to be. And that right there is a problem. And that is one of the reasons why it's not a fair playing ground. Because the teams that are from 18th going down or the 10th place going down do not have the leverage that the top 5, 6 teams do have. And that right there is a problem. So has the FFP changed? Who wins in this situation? Look at the Champions League era. You understand? Look at the Champions League era post from 2010 maybe. Dominance from Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Manchester City. Keep understanding this situation. The moment the FFP came out, we have been seeing dominance in the Champions League from Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Manchester City. If you look at the DeWalt team of how much they make the most, that right there is literally the list. And yes, Manchester United could also be said that to be the outlier because they have the money and have not been able to parlay this money into winning trophies and into winning titles. You can use that as an argument, but it's not a strong argument when you already have 4 clubs and more that are utilizing this exact thing in order for them to make more. You see Bayern Munich buys players from every other team in the Bundesliga. If they see a player that is better, if they see a player that is good in a team that's not Bayern Munich, they go and pluck them out. The next person that we will see, or we may see, is Jan Diomande of RB Leipzig. Bayern Munich have already started making moves on how to get him. We also saw the likes of Voldemar that was meant to go to Bayern Munich and chose to go to Newcastle. Of course, the money was more in Newcastle because you can pay more, and Newcastle were willing to pay more. Plus, I believe Voldemard's former club wanted more money and Newcastle was going to provide that. But you understand? And you of course, you would say, where is Leicester City's story at European level? You understand? The underdogs that nobody expected to win the Premier League. Where have you been able to see it in the European level? It's not happening in the Champions League, and we need to be honest with ourselves. Leicester City was a domestic miracle, but it sure could not scale. The question is, why couldn't it scale? Because scaling requires overspending before revenue catches up. And guess what? FFP, they block that acceleration. They make sure that you cannot overspend before your revenue catches up. Because when Leicester City won the league, they went into the Champions League. If Leicester City were allowed to pump the amount of money into the club that they should have, because you're champions, that means pumping the money into that club would absolutely give them the opportunity to make more money as they go forward in the Champions League, therefore increasing their stature as a club in general. Now Leicester City are in the Championship after the miracle. And you could say that they are the one club that would have been able to break into the top 5 or top 6 teams because they were able to do it in this decade. You understand? But FFP blocked that acceleration. And that right there is problematic. We need to look into it. Now, the counter argument about this situation, because we need to be fair, and this is against the narrative, so we need to be fair. And if you are enjoying the episode so far, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, hit that follow button, and like down. Or if in fact, share it to people that needs to hear this story or hear this counter argument about FFP. Because we need to be fair. You get me? We need to be fair. This is crucial for us, the way we look at things. The argument for FFP, of course, is it prevents reckless owners. We have already seen one reckless owner in the Premier League right now. He is wild in Evangelos Maranakis, the owner of Nottingham Forest, firing 4 managers, well, say 4, because he's probably going to fire the other cat by the end of the season when Nottingham Forest goes down. But you fired 3 managers, and you fired the one manager, especially in Sean Dyche, that could keep you up. He is known for keeping teams up. You fire Sean Dyche and bring on Victor Pereira. Are you drunk or something? So one thing is for sure, it prevents reckless owners literally overspending and putting the team and the club in a bad financial situation. That's a good thing. It stops financial collapse. So we have not been able to see the likes of Bolton the way it happened. We have not seen the likes of Portsmouth the way it happened before. Now we have seen something quite similar in terms of Sheffield Wednesday. But the good part about that situation is that administration has come in and they are trying to revive the club to a team that's what is stature and to watch the history that we were able to see in that particular team. Third, in this situation, it protects the club's identity. You understand? It makes sure that the club remains an asset to the community and remains a true leader when it comes to the Premier League football. You understand? And of course, it also encourages infrastructures like stadiums, academies. Those are things that it encourages because Tottenham Hotspur will be in one of the best positions that they are going to be in the next few years. Because the amount of money, I've already made a video about Tottenham Hotspur and why they are going to change the Premier League forever. So if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. It's going to be right here. It is absolutely amazing. And then you have to look at the academies. They make sure, or they try to make sure, that the people that are coming out of the academies have a fair shot into going into the big side or going into the team that they graduated from the academy for. You understand? I've already mentioned the Portsmouth collapse era, the financial chaos pre-2010s. Without FFP, some of those clubs would have not hit the self-destruct button. You understand? Without FFP, some clubs would hit the self-destruct button. So we have to agree with that. You understand? But then we need to focus and ask the question, is financial safety the same as competitive fairness? Because there is a key distinction between those two. Financial safety, competitive fairness. Those two things, to me, has a distinction. And because of that distinction, that is where it leads us into what would real fairness look like? What would real fairness for football teams actually look like? Now let's elevate in the thought process of how we are looking at things and discuss alternatives to the FFP. Revenue sharing. This is the NFL model. Revenue sharing means there's a pocket, you understand? There is money coming into this pot that the entire NFL makes within that year, and then they share it to each club. How equal? It's a little debatable, but they share it to each club. Now I know the likes of Dallas Cowboys are absolutely licking their hands when it comes to things like this because they are still able to make money outside of the revenue sharing. But what that does is it makes the teams absolutely have the money to be able to compete with each other. You understand? Now, a hard salary cap is also another thing that you could use, but I don't think that is even an option because Premier League and football in general has hitting the hard salary cap, and just literally blown the roofs off those situations. There's a reason why Tottenham Hotspur are now rethinking the salary cap. There's a reason why the likes of Atletico Madrid or the likes of Athletic Club are all rethinking their salary cap. Third is the luxury tax. You understand? Luxury tax, of course, means it's just like in the NBA. If you go past a certain amount of money spent, you have to give us back a certain amount of money. We are not going to stop you from going past that. But in the NBA right now, they have levers of salary tax. or luxury tax. If you go past the first apron, you pay about a certain amount of money. If you go past the second apron, you pay about a certain amount of money. If you go past the third apron, now they get the maximum that they can get from a luxury tax from you. So it's all your decision whether you go past the luxury tax. If you have the money to double up, let's say you go 5 million past the luxury tax, maybe you have to pay about 1 million or 2 million back to the NBA in order for you to be able to go past the luxury tax. Now, those situations would make sure that the teams do not go past that luxury tax. Now, the NBA, it has been successful so far. It's something that started 2 years ago, I believe. It has been successful so far because we are not seeing the accumulation of biggest talents of the NBA into one team. We are not seeing it anymore. We are seeing a more spread out situation because nobody wants to pay double the price to go get one person. Double the price to go get Kevin Durant. Double the price to go get LeBron James. Double the price to go get Steph Curry. Nobody wants to go pay that. And so it discourages people that have more money to go in there because you are going to get charged more than everyone else. And then you also look at the situation called a centralized commercial pool. Centralized commercial pool is something that is self-explanatory. It's a commercial situation. This is how you share the money that you get from TV rights, situations of that nature. You understand? Now the Premier League does this pyramid situation where the money from the top leagues sprinkled down. And that's a little bit what I'm talking about in the centralized commercial pool. But I believe when you look at these situations, there is a way to find out that we can do something better in this situation. Now, we need to look at what has happened in multiple leagues, independent club power, political influence. All these things are things that we absolutely can talk about. But one thing is for sure, UEFA balancing politics more than competition is a little iffy, and we need to absolutely say the truth about that. It is a little iffy and it's problematic to say the least. You understand? So now let's slow it down a little bit so people can catch up. If you are just joining us, this is what we have been talking about for 30 minutes plus right now. Financial fair play does not create a level playing field. Let me say that one more time so we can understand it. Financial fair play didn't create a level playing field. What it created is a regulated one. Those two things are different. They sold it to us as it's becoming a level playing field for every club in that system. But what it did, it just regulated how much other teams spent. And regulation without redistribution preserves hierarchy. Key word. Regulation without redistribution, it preserves the hierarchy, it preserves the top 6 to continue doing what they need to do to remain top 6. So the question isn't whether FFP works. The question we should all be asking is, who does FFP work for?